a rash, emotional decision from people who are not, stepping back and looking at this entire thing logically. And, I think you have to. And I think if you're looking at a league where so many people have gotten in trouble over the years and allowed to have second chances and sometimes third and fourth chances, I don't think you can sit there and then stamp your foot and say, we're going to draw the line at Ray Rice.
And I hear you there. I mean, I think, there's all kinds of, there's so many intangibles and different things that we can talk about depending on how you look at it. I agree with second chances. I think, Mike Vick or, Plaxico guy, hey, man, you serve your time. A couple years later, if you're still in shape, you get a second chance to go out there and do it. Missing 2 weeks of action doesn't exactly feel the same to me as earning your second chance. But my gut, what does your gut tell you? I'm just, we obviously the next 24 to 48 hours will be interesting with what the NFL does or doesn't do. Knowing the CBA, knowing the video that's out there, knowing the punishment that's tell you happens with this now from this point. This is punishment from the NFL, you think?
My gut is there's going to be a change. I don't know at what level. Again, it could come from the Ravens. It could come from the league. It could come from Ray Rice himself if he understands that it's just not plausible for him to return to the field at this particular time. I think something's going to come down. It's just a matter of what angle, and I think that's part of what's being discussed on Park Avenue right now. Is the fact that they're in a very delicate situation, brought in by their own issues, obviously, because of how badly they handled the situation at the beginning. Something's got to give as a point. I always say there's a tipping point. We've hit that tipping point, and the general public just won't accept 2 games and 2 games only for Ray Rice.
Yeah, definitely. And, at the end of the day, we'll have to see what happens here. Like you said, because I think it could be a combination of both, too. I think it could be. I don't know if it comes from Ray Rice himself, but I do think it could be a combination from the team as well as from the league as well. We'll see, man. Like I said, the next 24, 48 hours will be really interesting to see how this goes down and what ramifications there are going forward. And you know what? Since we've been talking about, suspensions and off the field stuff, the other interesting thing in the air right now, whether you're talking about the Browns, the Broncos, several other teams, we've heard all weekend long, 39 players suspended in one way or another to begin the season here. It was clearly something that's noticed here, and that's a noticeable number here. But looking at the talk that perhaps they get finished, and maybe this is that X factor. When you and I talked about Josh Gordon all summer long, and we kept going, what is it that we don't know that the Browns think they know, that Josh Gordon's people think that they know? And we kept coming back to the test and getting it appealed and all of that stuff. But it seems to me that it wasn't that all along. That was people reaching the wrong conclusion. I think clearly what everybody was banking on was what we're talking about now, which is if they get this new policy into effect, then it would change retroactively some of the people's suspensions. And with the talk now that perhaps in the next week or two, yesterday I know Tony Grossi here before the Indians game, before the Browns game, one of the beat reporters said that, it could be as soon as within a week here that Josh Gordon may be able to return if the policy is put into effect, which is really the big X factor. Talk to me a bit about what's truth and what's false here about that, and what the odds are that this A, happens, and B, that it changes anybody's suspensions.
I think people are jumping the gun. I really do. This has been talked about many times before, and it's been leaked that it was close many times before. And I've talked about this numerous times. I think it's lip service on both ends. I don't think either side is tremendously hell-bent on getting HGH testing, because I think both sides know it's a significant problem. And they don't want that really out there in the papers every day. Now, the one aspect of it that could help the Browns, could help Josh Gordon, is the fact that, HGH testing is largely a fraud. And I don't know how other way to describe it. WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Agency, which is basically a business, and a business that sells testing to organizations, has proclaimed it a solid test, but that's all it is. It's a proclamation. And I've talked to numerous doctors who, laugh at it and say basically if you take HGH in that morning, they might be able to catch you by noon. If they don't test you then, you're pretty much good to go. It's such a short detection window. So that's always been my question, is why the players are fighting it so hard, because they're not going to get caught by it anyway.
You know what, though? Let me jump in, John, just real quick, because I think you and I kind of both, you into some wrestling, and I think maybe some MMA. I am too. We have seen, though, and I've heard the same thing, because I'm big on that. I know a lot about the PEDs too as well, and I've heard that same thing. But you notice that this year, more than every year put together, they've actually caught a few guys on the HGH testing off, not the competition testing either. And so it leads me to wonder if maybe they aren't making a few advances there in being able to open that window. I've heard that potentially they could get it as far as even 12 to 24 hours after usage, which then that does open up that game day or game day before testing or day. I mean, we've seen they've gotten Sonnen and a couple of other guys here this year that they never got before. So maybe they are making some advances with that.
Yeah, well, WADA claims 21 days, so
I don't know about that. I'm talking same day. You know what I mean?
No, they're well, that's what I said. Their proclamation is absurd. But what they're and this is the part the players have a problem with. They're not catching anybody. What they're testing is levels, and that's why the players want a population study. To drive up the levels. They want a population study because so many people are on it that the levels will be higher, and therefore the level to fail will be higher. So the test, and I've gotten this from 3 or 4 really, really knowledgeable guys. The test itself is basically useless. The population study to drive up the levels is obviously a red herring to enable continued usage. And that's the biggest issue because the league is fighting the population study, saying there's no need for it. But still, from a legal standpoint, there's just too many hurdles. I mean, the actual positive test, and I put that in quotation, can be fought on so many different levels. My whole point, but anyway, I'm getting too technical because I know people don't want to hear the technical aspect of it. Is my whole point is that neither side is all that thrilled to get it implemented. So when you constantly hear, and I don't want to pick on specific writers, but this is the 4th or 5th time this story's been floated that they're very, very close, and it's been 3 years. And it's the old "fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me." I'm not saying it's not going to get done eventually, because I think it will. But to assume it's going to happen next week and Josh Gordon's going to be back there for hurdles to that, I wouldn't be, basing my whole season on that.
Well, yeah, that was the biggest thing that I was getting yesterday was, hey, what do you think, man? What are you hearing about Josh Gordon? And I'm like, okay, I can see the reality of the possibility. Like, yes, if they had to go retroactive, then yeah, okay, that's cool. That would carry over. That makes sense. But they're not there yet. They supposedly had been working on this how long now and haven't gotten it yet. So why? And I'm with you. Why am I to believe that it's going to happen like tomorrow. Like, unless it's the only thing that I thought of is maybe seeing the number of suspensions this year, as we saw on all the pregame shows. It was pointed out and focused on a lot of different places, that maybe I thought maybe that was kind of a emphasis point to get things moving a little bit, because you had a lot of guys going, hey, we got this guy missing 2 games for this guy's missing 4 games for that. I mean, it was it 39 players on opening week that were missing at least 1 or more weeks because of suspension. So I thought maybe that put some more onus on them to get something worked out, so you can get some guys back sooner and things like that. That was my thought, because otherwise, why would it happen now?
Yeah, I'll tell you the reason I think it may be closer. I don't think the NFL has a problem with the number of suspensions. I think they kind of like that, because to the casual fan's eye, to them it says, oh, look, the NFL's trying to clean up the game. So I think they've always spun it in that direction. So they don't necessarily mind the suspensions, because, that's what they say. Well, we're doing a good job. We're cleaning up the game. I think what's made it closer is the fact that the NFL has acquiesced to the fact that they will move things like, speed suspensions or Adderall suspensions. That'll go out of the performance-enhancing drug policy and move into the substance abuse policy, which means if you get tested positive for the first time, you'll have to test positive 2 times before the suspension kicks on. Under the PED policy, the moment you're caught, you're suspended for the 4 games.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest advantage and the biggest thing the players have looked at and said, okay, that could work for us, and that's why they're a little bit closer. But again, I had people tell me it's going to be done on Saturday. Well, now it's Monday.
Right.
It's still not done. Again, I'm not going to say it's not going to be done, because they have made slight incremental. They've gotten together on certain things, but I've heard it too many times in the past, and until it's actually done, I'm not going to believe it. And for Cleveland and Josh Gordon, there's also issues on when he tested positive the last time. Did it happen in the league year this year or the league year last year? So I think that all that aspect of it still has to be hammered out to see if he's going to be back at some point this year.
And even if he is too, there's the talk that with these changes that would perhaps allow him to come back, it would also tweak the way they're allowed to punish the DUIs. So not having to wait for adjudication on certain things with his DUI hearing coming up in November, even if the Browns did get him back, there's also the most likely thing that he loses another 2 games there either way because of that too. So a lot of moving parts, and I heard the same thing you did over the weekend. The talk was this thing will be able to be announced by the time the games start on Sunday, and then it'll be a big story on opening day, and then no, it wasn't. So who knows? But we'll see about that. Interesting, but I don't want to talk any more about off the field stuff, because there was football played this weekend, and some good football as well. Whether you start with Seattle as they began their defensive things with a pretty impressive one. I thought Seattle and Denver both looked like teams that look like they should be right back picking up where they left off. But let's start with the Browns yesterday, the Steelers, the tale of 2 different games, John. I mean, really, at halftime, I'm sure you are much like anybody here in Cleveland or around the country going, wow, it may be worse than we thought it was here in Cleveland. And then came the second half performance and a furious rally that falls short at the end. You lose by a field goal. What did you take away from the Browns game with the Steelers yesterday?
Well, I was most impressed by the fact that they hung in. I mean, you think about the lack of success they've had, and we've talked about it against the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger in general, and you kind of saw them fall behind, and you figured it was it. It was over. So the fact that they hung in, they came all the way back to tie the game. There are no moral victories in the NFL, but you had to feel kind of good that they stuck in the game, and it still hurts. It maybe even hurts more when you come all the way back, and and you can't get over the hump. But it was very, very impressive, the fact that they didn't give up, and that Mike Pettin had them battling until the final minutes, and some of the individual performances, the running